Welcome back to the gorgeous, beautiful Nicole. She's from the side of the world like me. She's in Australia. And I'm going to let her yeah, I know. We're going to go for team down south. We get to have summer everywhere else is in winter. Just going to say. Just a little bit of excitement because we're in summer.
That's right. We're sending heat and love.
I know my hair's already, I've had it tied up because it already went poof. we share you guys. So with that, Nicole, can you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us all about you?
Sure. So Dr. Nicole Gruhl here. What can I tell you? I work with people who want to live their best lives. My area of deep passion and specialization is spiritually transformative experiences. So that comes out of my own experience. My life has been like one big walking constellation of spiritual stuff that I've had to process and understand. And as a result, that's helped me really get to know how to walk that path with other people as well as they figure it out. So that's what I enjoyed doing. I took a deep dive in all of that to the point of getting a PhD in the area because I just really wanted to help give voice to spiritual health and wealth, because it's one of those things we don't talk about. You know, you go get your car serviced, you go to the doctor when something's wrong with your body, maybe you go and see someone if something's going on with the mind. But in terms of spiritual health, it's like there's no conversation about it, there's nowhere to go, there's nothing to do, and yet we know this is a phenomena that touches the lives of most people at some point in their life, and it's core to the biggest questions we ask ourselves. You know, who am I? What am I doing here? What's the meaning of it all? How do I be happy? What is love? You know, all of these key things for a really rich life. So that's me in a nutshell, I guess, Cindy.
It's like, that's me in a nutshell. It's a really big nutshell.
It's a tasty nut. I love living it.
Love it. But yeah, as you say, it's not something that is actually talked about. Nobody actually look at the spiritual aspect of, you know, who am I? And so where do we start with that discussion? What's the first thing we should be like looking at to our starting block?
Well, you know, we're so conditioned in many ways, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's no judgment in that. That's the way our modern society functions. We grow up in a family, in a community that gives us certain ideas about who we are and who we ought to be and what a good person is. And then we go to school, and then we go to big school, and then we get a job, and then we get this relationship, and it's like, it's so predictable, right? The line is so predictable until one day you retire, hopefully in a comfortable position, and then you maybe get to enjoy your life a little bit, and blah, 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 blah. We all know the story. Somewhere along that line, many people will start to get a bit uncomfortable, a bit unfulfilled, a bit itchy-footed, and go, surely there's something more than this. Is this all my life is meant to be? And that can be the beginning inkling of a very big rabbit hole if we start to open up to that question. And when we do, it's a beautiful deep dive. The problem is there's no quick fix and there's no quick answer, because you then open to a path of a seeker. You have an open question to the universe, which is, what am I doing here? Like, what is going to give my life meaning? And so you have to walk life openly as an adventure. So that's one road that can happen for people on the kind of questing path or the journey. And for others, they might have a spontaneous experience, a spontaneous awakening. And this is actually happening more and more. So there are many people who will just be going about living their lives, and then something occurs, a phenomena occurs in their life. Some common ones are, for example, maybe you lose a loved one and you've never thought much about it before, but then after you lose that loved one, some weird things start happening, some paranormal things, or you start having a connection with them in some way. This is actually fairly common, but people don't talk about it much because they feel like they're going to be in the woo-woo weird basket. Or people start questioning their sanity.
Yeah.
Or oh, there's so many of them that can happen, but even runners, like sports athletes, peak experiences can happen where people are going and they're in their zone, and then poof, they hit this place, which is, it's a transcendent space. Some people have it through dreams. They'll have their regular dreams, but every now and then they might have this way out there kind of dream that that, you know, you wake up from and you're like, I know that wasn't a dream. You know, or maybe someone gets very lucid in it and they're able to do new things and have new experiences. So it can happen so many different ways. And depending on how one's expansion, awakening takes place is one part of the picture. But then, of course, there's now you're in it. And what are you going to do now that you're in it? And so here comes the adventure. I like to think of it as an adventure. And look, what you might hear from people in spiritual circles, etc., is, oh, it's all love and light and peaches and cream. And I can tell you it's not. It ain't all love and light and peaches and cream at all. So that can be one of the parts that the fruits of it, certainly, and some of the experiences. And some people do genuinely have totally bliss-filled, euphoric experiences. However, many people don't. And for many, there are distressing parts of content that come up. I don't know if we're allowed to swear on this, Cindy,
Go for it.
Okay, our human shit comes up, you know, as we kind of start to grow and stretch as human beings, our stuff, you know, it surfaces, and it can be difficult and ugly and really uncomfortable. I mean, when I had a lot of my dark shadow content come up, the most appropriate description I could come up with when I finally found the words for it was like walking through molasses. You know, it was just that dark and heavy and sticky and icky and uncomfortable, right? So this is part of the human growth. This is why the Buddhists talk about the lotus that comes through the mud. You know, there's a whole heap of crud that is there at the bottom, but it's rich and it's fertile. And unless we can dig into some of those bits that are there, you know, those fruits aren't going to come through. And again, there can also be a perception of people once they're on the path to think there's a goal. There's like this ultimate goal of being awakened. And once I'm there and I'm totally enlightened, all is good. Well, I can tell you that perhaps there's the teeniest percentage of people on the planet that might have got to that point and achieved that. But let's talk about the ordinary person, you and I. For most of us, an awakened path and an awakened life is going to be one where we show up, we're present, we're as conscious as possible to life. We understand the fruits of these experiences, we can integrate them and apply them as best as possible on the human path. And even from the greatest wisdom path and the greatest sages, we know that what they have said is it's not about getting to a peak point on a mountain at all. It's about taking those elements, infusing them, embodying them as a human being while we are alive at this point in time, and walking forward in our life while we can with those gifts, you know? So this is what it's about.
It's getting juicy in here. I love it. And Sylvia just says, yep, those are the first questions as a kid. And to you, Nicole, finally somebody gets me.
I love hearing that. Yes. It's nice to feel that. And, you know, this is why it's important to have these conversations, because they're validating. That's one of the biggest things. If anything, just hearing someone else voice the questions, because especially if we've had spiritually transformative experiences, language can be one of the hardest things, because these experiences are so beyond, they're beyond time, they're beyond language. They twist all of the earthly concepts and constructs that we get used to working with. So it can be really nice to have language and names for experiences and say, oh, that's what I had. And I'm not crazy, because someone else has had that too. And that can be one of the biggest reasons why people don't talk about these experiences as well, is because they go, either they're all going to think I'm nuts, or maybe I really am nuts. You know, that's a silent conversation that can happen with people. And again, it's fairly common.
Yeah, like, am I going to be locked up if I say this? Somebody says, ooh, we need to have a conversation about mental health with you.
And that's actually the reality. And this is the sad part. I talk with people who've had this experience again and again, Cindy. There are many people where if you go to, unfortunately, the vast majority, if you go to a psychiatrist's office these days or a psychologist's office and you say, I'm hearing voices, I'm feeling other people's feelings, everything is one and unified, God talks to me, or whatever language you want to put to that, you know, if you start saying these kinds of things, red flags go off within the conventional medical system that we have. And unfortunately for a lot of people, that's a very vulnerable time. It's a very, the veil is very thin at that point in time. And when you're in it, it can be so hard to discern between how to operate in this so-called real world and what this expanded reality is, right? Because when you're in it, it's just all reality at that moment.
Yeah.
And so when you go in and you sit in that professional's office and you say that, there's a really good chance these days that you could end up with a diagnosis which lasts for a very long time, if not a lifetime, and is hard to erase, as well as being medicated. And what we know from people who have gone down that journey and who are, you know, on various parts of that path, is that that can add massive complications as well. Yeah. And
so
it's not to
you
say
get
it's not the
bipolarized
right
and
path
put
for some people. You know, I've met some folks that were saying that was exactly what I needed at that time. So every part of the system has its place. It's about how do we do the least harm possible is one bit, but ultimately, how do we empower people? And my goodness, we can do so much better. Yeah, which is why we need to have these conversations about being empowered you.
Exactly. We need to empower you and make this conversation normal. And as Sylvia was just saying, she got diagnosed with bipolar and put on pills. And we're both going,
That's right.
we hear you, sister. Because I mean, like the conversation that I had with you, I was like, yeah, I followed Spirit breadcrumbs. Anybody else be like, you did what? And you're like, yep, I got you. Like, yeah, I know what breadcrumbs you're following. It's all good. I'm glad, Sylvia, I'm glad you said no to that. Glad you said no to that. Because there is another option. There is another journey. And I'm going to agree with you. It's not pretty. The shit gets real. It's real when it comes up, but there is a little bit of light on the other side, as you say. There is light, and that could be the light and love people talk about when you get through that side, but it's not easy. And
there's a whole heap of light and love stuff. You know, ultimately, when we get down to the core essence of what it is to be human and what it is to be connected, we are beautiful. I mean, we are beautiful beings, and we've also got a whole heap of complexity about us as well, which is actually part of what makes this human earth experience beautiful and dynamic, right? If we were all the same, and if everyone inhabited this space of so-called oneness all the time, and that's a whole other conversation that I have a bit of an issue with as well, but if we did all inhabit this one love, light, oneness all the time, quite frankly, that'd be pretty boring, you know. So here we are as human beings. We are different. We are dynamic. We have personality.
Yeah.
You know, we have culture. We have ancestry. We have land that we're on. We have all of these different, and we have life experiences. And so we have all of these bits and pieces that have come together in this moment in time to create you and me as we are. And the fact that we get to interact and explore who we are as living emergent beings in the moment is actually pretty damn miraculous. The fact that we can even have a conversation and communicate. So, you know, what I'm so excited about on this planet, and I guess why I do the work that I do, is I see the essence at the core of people. And I get so excited about that spark of life that is them, right? We have a spark that is there when we pop out of our mama's womb. It's there. And till the moment we go, that remains with us. We have this life force essence that is there. And I've been at births, I've been at deaths, you know, and the one thing that is there is that little piece of life force energy. Yeah. And as soon as we give it up, like at that moment of death, or if there's moments, you know, existential moments in our life where we question it, or we don't want to be here, or we do give up in between, as soon as we lose that piece of will, that strength, that's, you know, that's the moment. that's the moment where it's like life isn't there anymore, right? So it's that beautiful core piece of life force energy that all of us embody. Our body carries it. And what excites me so much, Cindy, is when we tap into that and we turn up the volume on that, and then people start to live their own unique gifts, their own voice, their own pathway. They get powerfully into their body, particularly, well, not just even particularly women, for men too. It's a beautiful thing to see an empowered man, just as much as it is to see an empowered woman, right? But to walk solidly and soundly in your body, in your mind, to honor the natural energy of your mind and all of, you know, your heart and all the rest of it. And then when we all come together, right, as strong, empowered, confident beings, that's the planet I'm excited to be part of and to see what happens when we collectively come together now with our unique gifts and we just create phenomenal magic. Because magic can't not happen when people are fully in their zone and in their power. It just can't not. You know, miracles literally, like, expect miracles. Yeah. Crazy shit goes down and it's beautiful.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I've got it. So now I know we were talking about, you know, going on this journey and we all have it. It's all different. But I want to speak to the ones that, you know, they may be looking on Instagram or Pinterest and like, oh, but her spiritual journey looks like this and mine looks like this. How do we, you know, like bridge that gap? Because, you know, there is a lot of things that we see online with this growth and with the journey and what, you know, following your life's purpose should look like.
Yeah, absolutely.
How would you say we bridge that gap to where you are and where you want to go?
Yeah, well, one is turn down the volume on attention spent on Pinterest and other people's stuff, and focus on your own. What you see on social media is a projection of what people want you to see about their lives. 99.9% of people aren't being authentic, because that takes rawness, vulnerability. And so, you know, that's their stuff. It might look pretty. We all like pretty, you know, we're drawn to things that are beautiful. That's fine. That's part of our nature as human beings. We love the natural world because it's beautiful. Fine. Pretty's good. Honor it, respect it, love the other person for their path and what they're about. And know that you don't ultimately know the reality of their path and what they go through every single day. We have no idea what goes on behind closed doors. And so even the most so-called successful looking person on the outside, you don't know. None of us do. We don't know what goes on in their inner sanctuary, nor in their deep inner sanctuary of their being. That's not up to us to know. What we can do is focus on that inner sanctuary that we have of ourselves, right? That's where the real work gets done. That's where the real living takes place. And the more you get grounded in that, the more the confidence within you builds. Your feet get solid on the ground, your spine gets solid, your gut, you know, you just get really grounded and embodied in who you are. And those other bits and pieces start to fade away. They don't matter as much. Our attention doesn't go there as much because we know what's truly important. Right? It's going to be what's going on for you. How are you honoring your process? What is happening in each interaction in your life? What is the quality of the relationships going on around you? That is the gold. That's where the magic happens. And I understand that when those things are painful, when our own experience is painful and confusing, when our relationships are just a mess and we don't want to deal with it, we don't want to be around certain people, that the natural temptation is to look outward, right? Is to go somewhere else and, you know, to dream of something better. Now, if that's the position that you're in, that's okay too, right? Because visioning and the desire for something else is also incredibly powerful. But there are techniques to this. So when we vision forward, when we desire a different kind of life, right?
Yeah.
I wish my body looked different. I wish my relationships were different. I want a soulmate partnership, not this crappy thing that I'm involved in right now. I want to live in a different home, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a powerful thing to envision that and to hold that in detail and kind of put it out to the catalog of the universe. That's great. And the key is not to hold it as an image separate and away from ourselves, like a vision board postcard that we're just going to put on our wall and get to one day. The key is at the core of that, what do you want to experience? What is your core desired state? Is it to feel peace? Is it to feel joy? Is it to feel love? So identify the core state that image that you're conjuring up is going to give you. And once you connect in with that core desired state, that's what you start to amplify through your whole being. You know, you take the time to breathe it through your body. Let your cells, let your bones inhabit that space until you create a sense of spaciousness and peace or love or whatever it is. Because now you're doing the magic. Now you've taken whatever you're desiring and you're living it in this moment.
Yeah.
And the more you can live it in this moment, the more your situation is going to change around you, because you're going to make better, more empowered decisions from the place that you truly want to be in. And that's the magic to it. That's the key. You know, it's actually not that hard. We can get very complex and convoluted, you know, in terms of our visioning process and all the rest. But that if we can get that one process happening, we can make magic happen through the present moment and just grow more and more into it. And of course we need patience and, you know, determination, and we have to keep going. We have to tweak along the way. There's other bits and pieces, but that's it in a nutshell. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, look, the guys, done. We're just like mic drop and go, okay. We've got it. There you go. That's how you do Empowerium. But as you say, there's a lot of fine tweaking. There is adjusting along the way, what it looks like. Sylvia, wow. I know. Wow, right. It's just, yeah, I agree with her. She's like, that's another level. Sylvia, I told you you're going to have to wait. You're going to wait for Nicole. Like, I didn't lie. Didn't lie with this. So I've asked each one of the speakers what their definition of self-care is, because with each one of things that you're going through, how we honor ourselves is very important. So what is your take on what self-care looks like or feels like?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. I think ultimately self-care comes down to what makes you feel good. What makes you feel good and whole and nurtured. So naturally that's going to look different for different people.
Yeah.
For myself, it's time in nature. I'm very nature bound and oriented. I'm very relationship oriented. So the key for me is going to be creating the space and the time to connect with nature, to honor my loved ones and make sure that we have quality time together, to have fun and play and just be silly, and also be serious when we need to, and honor the stuff when it comes up. And I have a touch of the indulgent about me as well. So I love a good spa and a good physical treatment here and there, and I'll take a massage and then I hot stone massage. And, that's fine. We each have our quirks, right, and things that we want to do. So especially, this is a gathering of women, and as a woman, it can be really important, especially for those of us who have spent our lives looking after other people, because as women, we have big hearts, and we want to make sure everyone else is okay. It can actually be really hard for a lot of women to create the space for themselves to do something indulgent, like not only just one, have a bath, but two, throw the rose petals in it. Go and get those really nice bath salts. go and splurge on a very expensive bottle of essential oils, you know, get the frankincense and pop it in. These things can actually be quite large steps for some people, right? And yet when you do that and even honor that moment for yourself once a week, that as a regular practice can become the foundation of something that is self-care. I mean, you know, I have a young child. I know mamas who their only moment is when they lock themselves in a bathroom, right, to kind of escape. And if that's the only moment in a week, in a month that you're getting, because you've got people left, right, and center in the workplace, in the home, and knocking down the doors, of course you love everybody and you want to do the best to make sure everyone's okay. Yeah. But if there's no space for you to breathe in your life, you know, then we can only run on empty for so long. Yeah. And then other problems are going to emerge. So self-care, people can get into this conversation about self-care, self-love. Well, isn't that all very selfish and all the rest? No, it's not. It's essential groundwork, because when we are strong in our bodies and minds and hearts, when we are healthy, our capacity to be with others and give and provide, and be that big tree with all of the leaves and the shade and the fruit, just becomes so much more, because our roots are deeper in the ground. We've eaten good foods to nourish our body. You know, we've got good air, we've got good sunshine. Think of yourself as the metaphor of the tree, right? We have all of those things to just make us strong. And then who doesn't want to eat fruit from that tree? Who doesn't want to hang out under that? Because that's a nice space to be. Yeah. And it's a much nicer space to be than like a scraggly old tree that just is pulling on nothing, you know, to stay alive. That's kind of a horrible description, but you guys get what I'm talking about.
But it's true though. It is true. Like you become like the scraggly weeds, trying to get every little bit of energy that you can. Yeah. Because it's just like you don't have anything left in the tank.
That's it. That's it.
True.
And
it's so true.
Really, it's not a great way to operate, you know. And one of the things I wanted to mention to the women here today is, you know, talking about awakening your lioness, you know, about tapping into some kind of a powerful archetypal, you know, a creature, a form, something that's very primal and dynamic within you. It might be a mama bear for some of you. For me, the you know, the metaphor of the lioness works. It's that strength that we have as women to stand within our own power. We as women are so incredibly powerful, so powerful. You know, we have intuitive gifts, we have birthing gifts, we have, you know, crazy magic that can happen when we all come together. Incredible. And so when we stand in our power, as a woman, when you call on those deep, ancient forces, you know, and that can be one way, particularly if you're running on empty, that can be a very quick way to recharge and reboot, is to call on those forces that are, you know, outside of you, that have gone before you, to come through you, to help you out in that moment, and to help remind you of who you are at your core, who you are at your most strong, at your most powerful, at your most empowered. Allow yourself to be reminded and be held. We need to be held as women sometimes. We don't always have to do the holding. It's okay to let go and be held, particularly by forces that are bigger than ourselves. And just let that fill your cup for some time, you know, and whether you're running on empty or whether you're full, that's still a beautiful thing to do, because it's like this gold juju that just runs through the system even more and tops it up even more, and then off you go again, you know. Oh my God. So engage your lioness, engage your mama bear, you know, feel what that is, to move your body freely, to not be so confined. If you have to do it privately in your space, you know, rip the bra off, let the boobies shake. I mean, just understand you as a woman, move your hips, you know, shake it up, right? Just let yourself be in your body, because it's such a beautiful thing that we have. And voice is so key. Like, did you know that this vocal area is related to all of our reproductive organs, right? So as we voice, as we let go of this, as we, from this space, it actually helps us loosen up as women a little bit, because a lot of people around, very uptight, right? So let that loose. The physical is so important. And that connects then, it'll ripple to the heart space, to the emotions. It'll ripple to the mind. Your mind is a beautiful thing. Some of us need to be reminded of that. Some of us think, especially on a spiritual path, we hear messages like, got to get over the ego's bad, mind is bad, mind will trap you, mind, blah, 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 blah. There are many definitions of ego. The one I like to work with is that it is an organizing point of consciousness, which means we all need it, and it's actually very helpful.
Yeah.
So your mind is a beautiful thing. Your mind is there to help and serve. You are a genius at your core, right? It's okay to honor that. Your heart. So all of these things can be awoken and engaged as you call in on your deep energy as lioness, as mama bear, those powerful, powerful archetypal spirits. Yeah.
I'm like, this is so. I said it was going to be a juicy conversation, and I did not lie. She wanted to go to bed. I was like, no, you can't. The juiciness is coming. Oh my gosh. She says somatic work and vagus nerve activation. Yes, the best. I totally agree. So now, I'm going to ask you a question. And because I know we all on a spiritual journey, and we all at different, as I call it, we all at different seasons. We're all in different seasons. There is no right or wrong season. It's just we're all in a different season. What is the best advice that you have ever received or given on somebody that's just starting in this journey, that's been faced with this, like Sylvia, being diagnosed with bipolar, but it's just, she's going through, the awakening.
Yeah.
What is the best advice you've ever received?
One of the most powerful questions I was ever gifted was from a mentor when I was doing my PhD. He was this Chinese professor, and he was one of those characters that would kind of, walk around with his head down and his hands behind his back. And he looked like he was out of like some ancient cartoon, right? And anyway, absolutely beautiful man. And he's one of those types that wouldn't say much, but when he's going to open his mouth, you really want to pay attention. And so one day I was just blurting out everything about where I'm at. And after a long silence, he looks at me and he says, Nicole, what seeks to come through you?
Ooh.
And that shut me up. What seeks to come through you? And of course, there was a part of me that wanted to answer straight away.
Yeah. But
what I found with that question is journeying with that question has been one of the most powerful things. I carried that with me for many years at the forefront of my journey, because I was really, that came at a point where he could clearly see that I was on the seeker's path and I needed to understand. And that was his way, I believe, of opening me up even wider and connecting me with some greater life force energy, right? And yet I continue to journey with that question still. It's not always at the forefront of my mind in such a way, but it comes back on a recurrent basis. It's one that I use with clients and people I work with all the time. What seeks to come through you? Because I just think it is so powerful to be with that question and just to throw it out there and see what happens. What answers come back when you're present to it?
Oh, and so it's got like so much answers. I'm like, I love it. Justice, empower, revolution, beauty, healing, truth, expression, love, joy. Love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it.
Beautiful.
So we in the last, I know time has already flown, guys. Nicole, we almost at the end of it. And I know you've got something amazing to offer everyone.
Sure. This is the free gift?
Yes, it is. I was like, I know. I was like,
yeah.
we're there already. How did this happen?
Good conversation.
I know.
I have a book to offer everyone. So my latest, I should have grabbed a copy, actually, a hard copy, but my latest book is called The Power of Notes, how notes being non-ordinary transcendent experiences.
Ooh.
So how non-ordinary transcendent experiences transform the way we live, love, and lead. The book, in essence, is the research journey that I did through my PhD, where I went out and interviewed deep interviews with a bunch of people who'd had life-transforming spiritual experiences, and looked at the after effects in the short term, the long term, how do they integrate all of that, and how does that match up with their personality, and how do they live their gifts in the world. Now, no one reads doctoral dissertation journeys, especially when they're over 600 pages long, because they just sit on shelves and get dusty. And I didn't want all of this good stuff to go to waste. So I compacted it down into this super friendly, easy to read book that literally, if you were focused and engaged, you could get through in a few hours. It has checklists in there. I'm a coach, so, I can't help but put practical things in there, like checklists and, activities and things like that. So that's there for you for free, and it can be very helpful if you've had spiritual experiences, if you want to help name them, if you want to understand what, like, people, I often speak with people and they say, I'm living two lives. I have my spiritual life and I have my everyday life. So if that's you and you want to understand, how do you bring those together? How do you integrate that so that the gifts of those experiences, the wisdoms that have naturally come through you in your journey and adventures, how you can then apply them so that you can get your gumboots on and get into the world and live your life in a way that is so potent and meaningful to you that by the time you're on your deathbed, you look back and you go, that was freaking amazing, right? That is the kind of conversation that we're all about.
Amen to that one.
I call these people agents of awesome because, and awesome, like you've had this experience that is awesome, right? It is like beyond who we are, or awestruck. And to be an agent of it implies that there's something active. You don't just sit there and sit in your cave and meditate and all the rest of it. That's wonderful to do, and there's a time and a place for that. But eventually people on their path come to a place where they want to engage in the world. They want to get off the yoga mat and actually do something with it, not be all peace, love, and mung beans on the mat and then totally, out in the world and back out in traffic, but to actually, again, integrate that so that you can take the good stuff and apply it through everything that you do. Because it's no secret that our world is burning in so many different ways, no matter where you turn your attention, if it's socially, politically, environmentally, in your community, right? There's stuff going on. So we need our gifts. We need our people who have woken up. We need our people who are hungry to walk a conscious, empowered path. We need you to get your gumboots on and just do it with all the imperfections and to make it a glorious mess together.
Exactly, guys. As I say on my wall there, decide, commit, do.
Beautiful.
Do it. Thank you, Nicole. Oh my gosh, that was just like, mind blowing. And as Sylvia says, love revolution, Nicole. Thank you so much.
Totally. Go the revolution. Yes.
I love it.
Thank you, Nicole. Great time.
So much. And guys, the link is there, and I will email it out to everybody as well. Thank you so much.